Hi, I'm Jerome Braggs, the Soul Medicine Man, and I wanted to take some time to share with you a bit of my story. And to start with that, we need to just back up about, a little over 10 years to January 1st, New Year's Day of 2004. I was 24 years old. I was about a year out of college. And a few weeks prior to that date, I hadn't been feeling well. I had been upset stomach. I was experiencing some vomiting. I was couldn't move. I had soreness in my body, and I really thought, I was doing all the things that I knew how to do to try to get better, and I wasn't getting better. And I thought I had a severe case of the flu. So I had gone to the emergency room in hopes that, I could get some medication or some type of antibiotic and be able to be on my way and to be back home so I could go back to work. So I was working, this was my first professional job. I had my first professional job out of college. And when I got to the hospital, the doctor saw me and she took some blood and ran some tests. And when she came back from running her tests, she brought a team of doctors into the room. And they began to surround my hospital bed. And when she got close to me, she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, "Son, you don't have the flu. You have pneumonia, pancreatitis, anemia, a fluid-packed lung, kidney failure, a parasite in your stomach, and if all that wasn't delicious enough already, AIDS." And as I sat there shocked at, this litany of illnesses that she told me, they kind of threw the hammer down and they said, "And we think you have about 7 days to live. Your illnesses have progressed to a point where we're not sure we're going to be able to help you. We're going to do everything we know how to do, but you probably need to get your affairs in order." And then they left the room. And as they left the room, I was in kind of a sheer shock mode because here I am thinking, I'm in the hospital thinking I'm here for the flu. And I've just been told that I'm dying. And not just that I'm dying, but I have about 7 days to live. And as I was lying there alone on my hospital bed, what happened was I began to ask myself what I now know are the questions that every one of us will ask ourselves when we're dying. And some of those questions were, had I really been happy with my life? Like, did I really live the life that I really wanted to live? Or was I living some other version, trying to please other people or not really doing what I really wanted to do? Was I really happy with myself? Like, did I really fully love this version of Jerome that I was being in my life? Had I really been myself? Did I follow my dreams? Was I pursuing my dreams and achieving my dreams? And did the people in my life that I really cared for, did they really know how I felt about them? Did I really express my true feelings to the people that I loved? And then the last one was, had I really deposited on the planet, what I felt like I was here to deposit? Right? It was kind of like, had I really fulfilled or lived or experienced a bit of my purpose? And as I began to kind of play out those questions and look at my life, I realized that the answer to every last single one of those questions was no. No, I hadn't been happy, and I wasn't happy with how my life played out. I wasn't happy with myself. I had a lot of shame around certain things. I didn't feel comfortable in my body. I was thinking I was too fat, and I didn't know how to really express my true feelings to other people. So the people in my life didn't know how I felt about them. Although I was freshly out of college and I had a great, new job, it wasn't what I really wanted to do. It wasn't what really made me feel alive and what I felt like I really wanted to do in the world. And I wasn't really, I wasn't being myself. I was hiding at that time. I was hiding my sexuality, and I wasn't really speaking my truth or living my truth. And so I was faced with this conundrum that here I was asking myself all of these important questions at the end of my life, and the answer to all of them was no. And although at that time, I was already kind of on my spiritual path, like I understood that I was the soul having a human experience. I was a student of the law of attraction, and I believed, that there was something else after this life, that death was not an end, that it was just another chapter of my life. So although I wasn't necessarily afraid of death, I was horrified of the fact that I was getting ready to die and I hadn't really lived. And so what I began to do in that moment was I made a decision that I didn't want to die like that. I didn't want to end my life having not lived. I wanted to end my life being able to say yes to all of those questions. And so I made a decision right then and there that I was going to live, that I was not going to die in 7 days, that I was going to live and that I was going to heal so that I could have another second chance at my life, right? To be able to answer these questions is yes. And so I began to throw everything that I knew about creating my life and the law of attraction at my situation. Like, if no matter what anybody else wrote, or back then there was cassette tapes, so no matter what the cassette tapes, everything that was on a cassette tape or on a book that I had read anywhere about how to create your life using the law of attraction, I threw at this situation. I had made a little makeshift vision board in my hospital room. I was doing gratitude and appreciation journals every morning. I did a vegan diet. I had like a little positive energy bubble where if you came within 3 feet of me, you had to speak something positive, even my doctors. So if my doctors came to me in my room and they wanted to say, your test results aren't getting better or something like that, they could only tell that to me at the edge of the door. They couldn't come to the edge of the hospital bed and talk to me like that. So I did all of these things, like all of the manifestation tools, all of the creation tools that I knew and I understood. I threw that at that because I was like, if this is really real, right? If I'm really a soul that can create whatever I want on this planet, then it has to be true beyond just creating a parking space in front of the mall when I'm running late for the movies, or $5 to get something to eat when I don't have any money, or a date on Friday night when I'm feeling alone. If I truly create my life, then it has to be true for me to create this miracle. And so I went in with this intention that I was going to create this miracle for myself. And I was in the hospital for a month. I was placed on dialysis during that time. And after I got out of it, and I was getting, gradually better in the hospital to the point where they felt like, okay, well, you're probably going to be, we still need to watch you, but you'll probably be on dialysis for the rest of your life. And after I got out of the hospital, 2 months after I got home, I fully healed myself. My kidneys were back to fully functioning. All the illnesses had disappeared and were no longer being found in my body. And also HIV, they couldn't find it anymore in my system. They couldn't find any evidence of it in my system. It was like this miraculous healing. And I was being called this miracle child. My doctors were just amazed at my recovery and how fast it happened. And I was just elated because I knew that I knew in that moment that it wasn't an accident. It wasn't just a fluke that I had healed. It was a direct result of all this energetic work that I was doing to manifest, my healing and to live. And I had been giving a second lease on life. And I thought at that time, I got it. I understand how life works. I got this creation thing. I am this unlimited being, and I understand everything about life, right? And I was on cloud 9 until I found myself back in that same hospital with the exact same diagnosis to the T-cell count a year and a half later. And instead of 7 days to live this time, I had been given 48 hours. And on my deathbed this time, after the doctors gave me the diagnosis and they told me to pretty much call my parents and tell them to get a red-eye flight into the hospital because they just don't see how I'm going to make it past 48 hours. As I was laying on the bed this time, I asked myself a different set of questions. I didn't ask myself the same questions I did the first time. I asked myself a different set of questions because I knew that if I was back in that hospital with the exact same diagnosis, every single illness to the T, and the exact same severity this time, that this wasn't a coincidence, that this was actually a message, that my body was sending me a message through the status of my health. It was trying to get my attention to something that I was trying very hard not to pay attention to. And so on my hospital bed this time, I closed my eyes and I asked my soul, I asked God and I asked my soul, and I said, please talk to me. Please let me know what it is you've been trying very hard for me to know about my life that I've been ignoring. And also, I don't just want to survive this time. I don't just want to heal and survive. I want to know how to thrive. I want to know how to heal and thrive so that I don't find myself back in the situation. And that's when I had what many people call a near-death experience, except I didn't actually die. I didn't actually transpire and go to the other side. The other side came to me while I was still living. So how that looked was, all of a sudden, after I asked that question, the hospital room that I was in began to get extremely bright. It was like the brightest light that I've ever seen. And also the darkest dark that I've ever seen at the same time. It's kind of hard to describe, but there was this duality. It was like the brightest bright light I've ever seen and the darkest dark I've ever experienced at the same time. And as the light began to shift in the room, I started to feel a sense of oneness with everything. Like I couldn't tell where my hand that was laying on the bed, where it stopped and the bed began. I couldn't tell the difference between my blood flow and the IV drip. I couldn't tell, like there wasn't a wall out there. It was like I was in this whole experience of me. Everything felt like me and I was one with everything. And when I began to feel this sense of oneness, I began to feel this overriding flow of love beyond anything that I can really express. It was just this deep feeling that I was completely held, I was deeply appreciated, and that everything was okay. And when I began to feel that feeling, it was just this relaxed sense of ease and wholeness and lovability. When I began to feel that, that's when I heard the voice. It was, I call it the voice of my soul, the voice of my God self, the voice of God. And it was a very powerful, very centered voice. And it sounded a lot like me, but the non-neurotic me, right? The me that, didn't feel that he was too fat and he needed to lose 30 pounds, or the me that was ashamed of himself or that was afraid. It was like a very grounded, centered, whole me, very divine sounding me. And it said to me, beloved, you know a lot about pushing and forcing and fighting and struggling to try to make good things happen for you. But you don't know shit about how to just let your life be good to you. And yes, my soul did say shit. And it said after that, life really just wants to be good to you. It wants to be good to you in every area of your life, not just in your health, but in your relationships, in your finances, in your overall life and your work. Life wants to break out the good for you in every area, and you're not letting it. And the key to let all of this happen to you, the key for well-being, is to love yourself fully and to embrace and express more of your soul. You don't know anything about that yet, but you're going to learn. And after it said, you don't know anything about that yet, you're going to learn, that's when the voice went away and the light kind of went away and went back to the regular kind of hospital light. And I began to feel back, the solidness of my body. And I felt like, oh, okay, I can tell that I'm in this hospital bed and this is my body and this is the bed and that's the wall. And I was back in kind of a separation, like instead of just a oneness, I was back in kind of a separation kind of experience. And I knew that I had just been giving the big kind of mystical spiritual moment, like the big aha, right? That I had literally spoken to the divine and had been given the blueprint for how to heal, not just my body, but to heal my life. To heal my life. And that in order to do that, the path to do that was to learn how to love myself and embody more of my soul. And while I was excited about this mystical and divine experience that I had, at the same time, I was also very scared because I didn't know anything about loving myself. I did not know at all. Yeah, I had given lip service to it before, like, oh, I love myself. I buy myself nice things and I'll get a massage every once in a while. And, but the truth was the love that I had been giving to myself was highly conditional. Right. I loved myself if I was a certain weight. And when I wasn't a certain weight, and if I didn't look a certain way, I definitely didn't love myself. I was beating up on myself. I felt ashamed of a large part of myself. I felt ashamed of how my body looked because I didn't think it was fit and in shape, and therefore it wasn't attractive and wantable and lovable. I felt ashamed of my sexuality. I felt, that being a same gender loving person at that time meant that people would reject me and that they would think there was something wrong with me. So I hid a lot of myself back then. And so I was faced with this conundrum of this invitation to that in order to heal myself, I would have to love myself fully. And I didn't know how to do that. And I was scared because, I had lived this whole life. I had lived 24 years of my life, basically, really not knowing how to love myself. Basically hiding, and being ashamed and judging and criticizing myself and always like pulling on my clothes or diminishing myself so that, I don't cause waves and all of that. So I made a decision, another powerful, transformative decision on my deathbed that day, that I was going to do what it takes to learn everything about what loving yourself actually is and what embodying and expressing the soul, the highest, most divine aspect of myself in my life, what that actually took, what it looks like, and how to do it. I was in for the long haul. Like I was sign me up for the masterclass. I didn't want to learn, on the surface level. I wanted a very deep dive because I didn't want to be back in the hospital anymore. And I didn't want to be back on my deathbed anymore, with all the pain and all the drama of that. So I made a decision that I was going to do that. And that began my awakening journey. That began what I call my soul's masterclass and my rite of passage, where I began to take a deep dive into what loving ourselves really is, it was a very mystical and miraculous journey. It was a 10-year journey. And, if I had known, gratefully so, I didn't know that it was going to be 10 years at that time, that I was going to have to go through so many other challenges and so many other transformative, powerful, profound moments. But that my journey was this journey into understanding that loving yourself is learning how to feel good about myself and appreciate myself, and be grateful for myself unconditionally. Not just when I have a certain weight on the scale or a certain bank account balance or a certain achievement or a certain level of success or a certain relationship or certain accolades or external approval, but just as I am, as is right now, if nothing ever changes about me, can I feel good about myself and fully appreciate myself as is? That's a part of loving myself. And parts of my journey, I had to look at, where were the beliefs that I was holding about myself and what had I learned about myself that I had to now let go of, that were disallowing that were in direct resistance to that type of experience. The beliefs that I'm only lovable if, I'm thin and muscular, the beliefs that I'm only lovable if, I am more masculine, or if I appear to be heterosexual, that I'm only acceptable and belong and I'm lovable if, I'm a good boy and I say yes all the time and that I'm always pleasing everybody, right? So I had to really heal all of these inner messages that I had been gotten from, throughout my childhood and into my adulthood, and learn how to fully just embrace my own lovability, just as I am, as is, no matter how I look or don't look, no matter what I have or don't have, no matter where I am or where I'm not, that can I fully appreciate and celebrate and be grateful for myself no matter what. And then the other part of that journey was learning that loving myself also means that I treat myself in a very respectful and nourishing way, that I make that the behaviors that I have towards myself and the choices that I make for myself honor me and nourish me unconditionally, right? So that I don't just do nourishing and honoring behaviors when it's popular, that I do it even if it's unpopular, even if nobody else in my circle understands or agrees, even if it's not the popular opinion in society. That I begin to choose for me, that I choose my joy. I follow my joy. I do things that affirm me, that I do things that I really want to do, that I stop saying yes to things that I really want to say no to, that I speak my truth, that I have healthy boundaries, that I allow myself to follow my dreams and to go after what makes me come most alive. Like, all of that were aspects that I had to learn along this journey. And they came through many different things. There were many other health challenges that allowed me that offered me opportunities to learn that. There were many other life experiences and events that helped me do that. But what ended up happening was I had a deep, deep understanding. There were three things that I got out of my masterclass. I had a deep understanding of what self-love is, that it is feeling good about ourselves unconditionally, and that it is making choices and developing behaviors that nourish and support us unconditionally. And why that's important is because when we love ourselves, when we are appreciating ourselves, then we raise our vibrations. Because what matters most in our ability to heal ourselves and our ability to create whatever we want, like, this is literally the missing pieces of the law of attraction that a lot of people aren't actually talking about, is what matters most is not the vision board, is not the affirmation cards, it's not even the gratitude journal, although that's important. What matters most is how you think, how you think about yourself, how you feel about yourself, and how you treat yourself. Because that literally opens the gates. How we think about ourselves is we think in a loving and supportive and nourishing way. When we treat ourselves in a loving and supportive way, and when we feel about ourselves in an appreciative, affirmative, and nourishing way, that literally raises our frequency and it opens the floodgates of receiving to the universe. I now know that when we love ourselves, all is coming. It's loving ourselves is the literal key that opens the door to everything we've ever wanted, whether that's a fulfilling relationship, whether that's more prosperity and abundance in our financial situation, whether that's fulfilling and successful work, whether that's a deeper connection to ourselves and a deeper connection to the divinity of us. Loving ourselves is literally the key. And unless we're loving ourselves, nothing in our lives can work well. The other part of that is embodying more of our soul, that the soul is the part of us that always loves us. It's the most divine, God self part of us that has never forgotten our true value and our true essence, that we are lovable unconditionally, that we are worthy undeniably, that we are safe eternally, and that we can create and have and be and do whatever we want because we are literally facets of God and there are no limits on our abilities. And so when I began to align my consciousness, like what I believe about myself and what I believe about the world, and my vibration, meaning what I emotionally feel about myself, when I began to align that with the truth that my soul knows about me, with how my soul feels and thinks about me, then that's literally when everything becomes well. That's when the health of my body gets better. That's when my life works better. And that's when I don't have to work so hard and effort and push so hard for life to be good to me. That's when life just starts being good to me and I let it be good. I step out of struggle and effort and pain and force and push, and I start to have a deeper relationship with ease and liberation and joy and well-being. And so my journey was this masterclass in understanding that self-love and soul alignment were our most healing and transformative practices, that no matter what's going on in our life, everything gets better when we practice those things, that they are literal medicines that have the power to not only heal our bodies, but heal our lives. And that's what led me to doing the work that I do today and helping people heal whatever ails them, whether it's in their lives or their bodies, to create whatever they want for themselves, whatever desire or dream they have that they want to manifest, and to experience a more delicious level of well-being in every area of their lives through a deeper practice and application of the soul medicines. I am a living witness that loving ourselves and learning to embrace and embody more of the truth of our soul in our lives transforms everything and raises the level of our lives to something that is utterly delicious and flourishing and liberating and joyous and easy. And I don't just want that for myself, but I want that for everyone who I work with. And so that's what I do in the world today. That's what my message is. It's how to use the soul medicines to experience a higher level of well-being in your life. And if you are wanting to heal something, if there is something, a disease or illness that is showing up in your bodies, that is not a punishment. It's just a message. It's a message and an invitation that somewhere in your life you've not really been loving yourself well. And it's an invitation to begin to do that. And it's an invitation to come back into alignment with the truth of who you really are, that you are a mystical divine being that is more lovable and more worthy and more whole than you've ever been taught or led to believe. So that's my story in a nutshell. I hope this enlightens you a little bit about who I am and why I do what I do. And if you're out there and you know you're ready to experience a more delicious experience in your life and in your body, I'd love to work with you. Come see me. Welcome to my website, and I hope to chat with you soon. Much love. Bye.